Hello. I believe we're live.
Sorry, I'm a bit slow.
Let's just make sure. Yes, we're live. Why can I hear Doctor Who music? That's so bizarre. Sorry, gang. One moment.
You've been trying to kill me for centuries, and here I am.
This is so bizarre. Why can I hear Doctor Who music? I can hear Doctor Who. I will die, apparently. This is so bizarre. Sorry, gang. I'm going to quickly put JD Hansel in here. Hello, JD.
Oh, hi. Why can't I hear Doctor Who?
I don't know. I had been watching a video earlier. I managed to figure it out. It's fine. I have so many windows open. Jesus. All right. You want a big dumb question? I've got a big dumb start. Nice. Nice.
There.
Maybe that's what I knew. I knew.
Bibbidi bobbidi boo, as Doctor Who always says when he waves his magic screwdriver. Every time.
That was so bizarre. Sorry, gang.
Yeah.
Hello. Welcome to Big Dumb Questions with the Muppet Mindset. Another live stream during the apocalypse. I am, of course, Jarrod. With me is Mr. JD Hansel. Hello, Mr. JD Hansel.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Yeah, hi. Hey, it's so good to see it, Jarrod. It's been such a long time.
It's been a long time since we've done one of these.
When was the last time that you and I last talked? Was it, let's see. I think it was probably before the war, before the Great Depression. I think before talkies. I think we can safely say.
Yeah, no, look, it's definitely close to that.
Yeah.
I think it was in the before times. The long time ago, I like to call it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's okay because we're here. We're going to talk about Muppets and Sesame, and we're going to do some pretty fun things a little later on.
Yeah, we've got some ideas for how you guys can get involved in the future. For right now, I don't know how to see what they're saying.
I can.
You can. Then for now, I think I'm going to let you be in charge of that. For me, I've got some ideas because, by the way, how many people are watching? Is anyone here?
Yeah, we have a few. We have, yep, we have enough.
Okay, good. Enough for me to already be so terrified and nervous because I'm uncomfortable broadcasting live in front of people.
Not at all, my young friend. Not at all.
So, I've seen some of the other streams that you've been doing. I watched your stream with Joe, which was great, and I loved it. And I watched your stream with Clayton, which was great, and I loved it. And I thought, wow, tackling all these big questions, it's great. But in response to that, I want to tackle even bigger, dumber questions.
I'm excited to tackle big dumb questions with you.
That was my thought the whole time, because you had like a pretty just a normal, sensible, understandable chat with Joe that any respectable Muppet fan could understand, and then you take it to this other more philosophical level of Clayton. And I want to sort of respond to some of those same things and make them dumber, because I think that's really what I'm best at. So first of all, I just want to clarify. I was the one who told, or didn't tell you specifically, but who posted in your social media feeds that Frank Oz does the voice of the robot in Zathura. So you can thank me for that.
That was you. Do you know that's really mental? Trying to figure that out.
Yeah, it was me, because I think I was looking it up because for whatever reason I ended up marathoning Jumanji movies in these wild and crazy times, and I was wondering whether or not to do that one, and the weird thing about it is that Zathura, directed by Jon Favreau, who didn't even like Jumanji. And he didn't like it, and he directed the spin-off, which is so weird. And then he puts Frank Oz in it, and no one remembers that Frank Oz is in that film. It's an odd thing. It's a very odd thing, but that is not really what we're here to talk about.
No.
You'll have to pardon me for being all over the place, because right now, my gosh, what a crazy time we're living in. I think now that we're all kind of stuck in our homes and we're getting the cabin fever, as the folks at Tough Pigs have pointed out.
Yep.
We're all starting to lose our sanity a little bit, or I know I am. I don't want to speak for all of you, but I'm losing my sanity, and I think really that's what this is about today, and why we're here is to talk about the loss of my sanity and the sanity of the world at large. And at a time when you're losing your mind, you start to question you start to question the nature of reality. Yep. You start to ask, is any of this real? What kind of reality are we living in? These are the bigger, dumber questions that I'm interested in. And when I'm thinking about this reality, I think about how odd it is how incredibly strange, and really how unrealistic it is, right? Because we're living in a time that seems unrealistic, in part because of, you know, just the big real world problems like the coronavirus. When you think about just the fact that Donald Trump is president, that's still a weird thing.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like it should be real or possible. But also in terms of Muppet stuff, you know, the way that Frank Oz within the past few years made a movie about his time with the Muppets, and in a press interview did one of the voices of one of the Muppets on command.
Yeah, that was. I remember you and I had a discussion around that. I think we did a bit on the Muppet Fans Talking podcast about it.
Probably.
Yeah, that was
also a time.
That was bizarre.
It was bizarre. It's also a time when the Muppet Babies has gotten a reboot, when there's been an animated spin-off of Fraggle Rock based on the Doozers that I have not seen. It's like weird that there's this the first Fraggle Rock property in such a long time, and none of us Muppet fans have actually watched it. It's an odd thing. Not to mention the fact that there are currently 2 Muppet-themed restaurants in Disney parks, neither of which makes sense.
I mean, Rizzo a little bit, because he's got that sort of New York style, and plus it's New York style pizza, but
I'm fairly certain that entire restaurant was based around the idea that they needed to have a pizza place, and they thought, what Muppet has something to do with pizza? And they literally thought of Pizza Rat. I think that it's primarily a Pizza Rat-based property.
Well, very likely.
And then with the Sam Eagle thing, I don't think they were looking at the Muppets and saying, boy, what's a great thing that we could do with the Muppets? They were looking at a place where they needed an America-themed restaurant and used their one and only America-themed character.
I think they've just thought of the word regal and then went, what rhymes with regal? Yeah. Eagle. Have we got any characters that are eagles? There's this obscure character from like some, you know, crappy 1940s movie. Or there's Sam Eagle. Who? Yeah, all right, we'll go with that guy. I vaguely recognize his face.
And then, of course, there's also the Disney Parks character, Sam the Eagle, from America Sings, an attraction that no longer exists. But we're here to talk about Muppets. And I'm interested in how weird our reality is because of when Jim Henson died. Because Jim Henson died at a really odd time. He died at a time when his career was at its all-time high point and its all-time low point at once. It's when everything that he was doing was failing or getting canceled. I mean, it was just one disaster after another. He had the Jim Henson Hour thing. He had the failed Little Mermaid thing. Just everything was going wrong. And this is after the failures of Labyrinth and arguably the failure of the Dark Crystal. And at the same time, he's getting the opportunity to become the new creative figurehead behind the Walt Disney Company. Which is just he's literally getting the keys to the castle, and he can do whatever he wants with theme parks, movies, TV, all of it. He's peaking here, and it's at a point when everything with the Muppets was about to change, and then he dies right at the wrong time. And to me, it seems like it's probably before he would have had a second wind, when he would have all these opportunities to try new, different, interesting things. If you look at the life of Walt Disney as a parallel, he started with shorts, with stuff that was fairly obscure, and then had this big success that allowed him to try something that everybody thought was crazy, doing a feature animated film. For Jim, starts with the obscure stuff, the short, you know, Sam and Friends commercials, very short form things, gets to Sesame Street, and it allows him to ultimately do Jim Henson's Folly, The Muppet Show. Both of which blow up and become, the Snow White and The Muppet Show become the most popular things ever. They blow up like crazy and basically give them the freedom to do a lot of what they want to do from there on out, or so it would seem. But then they both go into these lull periods. For Disney, it's in the 40s when he can't quite get anything to work for him. And Jim, it's through the 80s when he can't quite get anything to work for him. Even the future Muppet movies that we now think of as classics were not working. The Muppets Take Manhattan, it's a good movie, great movie, didn't have quite the response they were hoping for. Certainly the case for The Great Muppet Caper. But then, of course, Walt, he goes on after the 40s and has that second wind when he gets that opportunity. So we're in this weird reality where it seems to me that Jim Henson was supposed to get his second wind, supposed to get his chance to really define the Jim Henson brand, And instead, we're in his weird It's a Wonderful Life alternate reality where what if Jim Henson had passed away? How weird would the world be? Would the Muppets be split up into different companies? Would Jason Segel, the guy from How I Met Your Mother, end up making a Muppet movie, which then would stress him out so much he would pretty much leave the entertainment industry and become an author? How weird could it be without Jim Henson? And yeah, that's kind of the world we're living in. And I keep waiting for that moment when the angel's going to show up and take Jim Henson back and the timeline will be corrected. But that's not going to happen. And it's up to us fans, I think, to figure out what it would take to sort of correct things and make coherent brands, to make the Jim Henson brand or the Muppet brand make sense again. Because as far as I'm concerned, none of them quite do, you know? I mean, you look at the Disney brand and they've got Mickey and Friends at the center, and that's always going to be there as something that everyone immediately identifies as Disney. Whereas with Jim Henson, the Muppets are kind of the core of the brand, right? Like right at the center of the Jim Henson brand is the Muppets, and the Muppets aren't there. They're not with the Jim Henson Company right now. So it makes for a very fractured thing. There's not quite a coherent sense of what the Muppets are supposed to be, as they currently have no real leader, no coherent sense of what the Jim Henson Company is supposed to be, I don't think. They're trying a lot of different things, some of which work, some of which don't always necessarily work. It's sort of a mix, I think. But we've got this opportunity right now as two fans with a massive platform of how many people are watching us?
I don't know at the moment.
Great. Surely millions. So while we have millions of people here,
4 billion people.
And so great. So aliens are involved too. I'm so glad we got Mars connected to this stream. So while you're all here, and while I know that, you know, the people who run the Jim Henson Company and Sesame Workshop and the Muppet Studio are listening, let's talk about this. Let's talk about how to, what?
Are they listening? Anyway.
Billions, Jarrod. I think we've got the chance to figure out how we would imagine that all of this could work. What do we imagine a great, strong Muppet brand looks like? What would we hope in our wildest dreams the Muppets would be doing right now, Sesame Workshop would be doing right now, and so on. And as they said in that Sesame Street song, we picture a world and try to make it that way. And that's what my life is about. And that's also why I will always be disappointed with everything.
Well,
because
you know, in therapy, we call that a breakthrough. Okay, I don't even know where to start with that question.
I've got a starting point for you. Because you already talked about some of this stuff in your last stream with Clayton, which was it was a great conversation. You had a great chat. So much better than this one, by the way. A lot less ranty, and a lot less JD Hansel, which makes everything better. But I liked that you talked about streaming services a bit. I'm looking at my notes here. Sorry about that. Still not used to live streams. Streaming services. You talked a bit about Disney Plus.
Yep.
And what is and is not there. And you talked about, somebody asked you, I think, about the Muppet Show, or maybe this was with Joe, about the Muppet Show. When would that be released?
Yeah.
And I've got a few thoughts on streaming services that I think are interesting to Muppet fans. So first of all, as far as the Muppet Show goes, what I would like to see them try to do first, I'm glad that they've got the new series coming, and I think that's important. What I really like to see Disney Plus try to do, first of all, is just get a few of the episodes that they've already got the distribution rights to, just a few of the highlights that they've already cleared from seasons 1, 2, and 3, particularly 2 and 3. Just give us a small selection. What I would say is just try it. If they picked like 12 strong episodes and said, we're not going to give you a whole season, because every season has it's a mixed bag, right? There's a lot of weird stuff in seasons 1 and 2 and even 3. But they just say,
well, yeah, I really think it took to season 3 until that show started to hit its stride.
Really? I would say in season 2 is off to a weird start. Those first few episodes are odd, but then season 2 is where you get Peter Sellers, Elton John, Julie Andrews.
There are certainly aspects of season 2 that I mean, even 1 and 2 that are great. I think season 3 is where you really, everything gels. Everyone knows each other. The chemistry between the characters is there. The chemistry between the performers are there. They know what works. They know what doesn't. That said, there's some great stuff in 1 and 2. But I think season 3 is just like everything is like bang, 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 bang. They were doing slightly weirder things with the show. They were taking bigger risks. They were taking bigger swings.
So yeah,
yeah.
just grab like volume 1. You know what they could call it? They're going to do a collection of the best episodes of the Muppet Show, and they should call it Best of the Muppet Show. There you go.
Yeah.
Problem solved. No one's ever thought of this before.
I think I do have to wonder how well the first 3 seasons sold on DVD. I really do, because
I have no idea.
I don't know, and that was long before my time running any sort of Muppet fan site. I have to wonder how they went, because I can't imagine if they were selling really well, Disney wouldn't have put the time and effort in to release 4 and 5. So I have to imagine that they just weren't selling enough to validate spending that much money. You're okay. I'll continue to rant as you walk off screen. I think now that it will cost less to have to produce and package DVDs, and they don't have to worry about any sort of features, they don't have to record any stuff for menu screens, anything like that. I think if we're going to get the Muppet Show released in full, it will be on Disney Plus. And I think the even if it's in a slightly different format, even if there are certain songs they can't get the rights to,
yeah,
it sucks. But okay, just don't put those songs in the episode.
Well, remember, way back in the days of VHS, what they would do is they would actually release tapes that were just collections of different songs and sketches from the Muppet Show, and they'd have little host segments in between, right? And I feel like that's a perfect opportunity to say, look, all these UK spot songs are in the public domain.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just, again, for the sake of trying to get Muppet Show content out there, let's just have Walter or whoever come on and introduce in the little cutscenes some of their favorite moments from the Muppet Show, and then they just give us a spread of those moments just to try it. But when I look at the DVD here for season 3, what do I know about what's actually on this just when it's in the wrapping, just when I'm looking at the package?
Mm-hmm.
It says, Waka Waka Waka, grab a seat and spend some time with characters that have kept the world laughing for over 50 years. Join the hardest working Muppets in show business, Kermit the Frog, Miss Piggy, Animal, and Fozzie Bear, and yada, yada, yada. I'm looking through this. It says there are 24 episodes on it. Nowhere does it tell me who's on this. I have no idea from looking at this package who the guest stars are.
Mm-hmm.
I think, it's the same thing here, too. Like, I don't actually know from looking at it what episodes I'm getting. I'd have to, Google it? I'm not going to do that when I just want to buy a DVD. No.
But I think partially that is because, give me a sec, right? I've got the season 1 DVD here, right? Here we go. But slightly different packaging than you guys have, right? This was, I think, just nice Australian packaging.
That's nice.
Again, same sort of thing. Doesn't have any of the guests' names on there. But if you look on the inside, they're all written on the inside. Now, I'm not saying, because this was obviously wrapped up in plastic when I got it.
Right.
I think partially it is because, let's pick a name here. How many people sort of who aren't overly familiar with the Muppets and maybe pop culture back how it was in the 1970s are going to go, oh my God, this episode has moment chants in it. Oh, I love moment chants. What about Avery Shriver? I love Avery Shriver. Oh my goodness, Harvey Korman.
I thought you were going to.
These DVDs for the guest stars, so I don't know that it's overly important to have. I think when it comes to episodes like your John Cleese ones, your Steve Martin ones, especially your Star Wars ones, a lot of the draw for that is the guest star, because the guest star is such a big part of that episode. Whereas I could not tell you off the top of my head anything that happens in the Avery Shriver episode of The Muppet Show.
No. I believe he has a battle of insults with Sweetums, and that's all I got.
Right?
What was that?
I said that sounds about right.
Okay, cool. I can't tell you anything about who Avery Shriver is except for a guest star on season 1 of The Muppet Show. And I think we'll never know. Like, who were Leslie and Warren? Presumably they were very popular in the 1970s if they made it onto The Muppet Show, but I haven't seen them in anything else. I've heard they were in Clue. Were they in Clue?
Yeah.
Okay, well, there you go. We have a Clue. So that It's a good point that I guess you don't always go for the guest stars, but that's why I'm saying you do a best of collection, you shorten it, say, what do you want from the Muppet Show? You want the Muppets with somebody funny from the 70s. Here's Steve Martin. You know who Steve Martin is. You know he's funny.
Yeah.
You're good. This is, or you just see that thumbnail on a streaming service of Elton John in the big crazy costume during the Crocodile Rock number. You're gonna click that thumbnail.
Yeah,
of course you are. And so, and then of course the other thing is, they could have easily, without having to get the rights to images of any of the guests, they could have just stuck a picture of Mahna is season 1. They could have just stuck a picture of Mahna on here, and then people would have bought it because it's Mahna. Like, you got to give people something they recognize.
Correct. But I think as well, this was coming at a point where, these came out in 2006, 7, 8, about those sort of years. That was also a point where YouTube was starting to really take off. And a lot of these clips are already on YouTube. So I wonder if a lot of people are like, well, I'm not going to buy a DVD to watch Mahna because I don't care about Sandy Duncan or Julia Prowse or Connie Stevens or whoever it is. When the only thing I want to watch is Mahna and I can just watch that on YouTube. Or, I just like the 2 old guys in the balcony. Okay, old guys in balcony Muppet Show. Put that into YouTube and you have hour-long compilations of all their insults. So I think that partially may have been the reason.
I would argue that one of the things that streaming services allow that DVDs don't is a certain ease in watching content, because you can just start playing something and then it's on. You start it and then it just goes.
Yeah.
Like, one of the most difficult things, because you and I are both fans of classic cartoons. You've got a fabulous Bugs Bunny sweatshirt that I'm super jealous of on right now. I've got classic cartoon stuff behind me everywhere. What, a Pink Panther thing, Bugs Bunny stuff all throughout here. But how well does that usually sell on DVDs? Very often, there's been like this big ask from fans for them to release like all of the Tom and Jerry stuff remastered on Blu-ray, all the Tex Avery stuff remastered on Blu-ray, all the Droopy, all the Looney Tunes, all that stuff. And yet, very often, they don't get very far because the DVDs, despite there being an audience for it, the DVDs and Blu-rays don't get quite as far as they think. Yeah. Weirdly, Popeye, I think, has done pretty well. They've gotten a very lengthy series of DVDs and Blu-rays out of Popeye.
Yeah.
But still, that's one of the things. It's like, well, it's a cartoon series. Like, it's weird for me to put in a disc to watch a series of short things. Well, I want to. Whereas with streaming, with something like Boomerang, it's a whole lot easier to just go to one of the playlists that they've already made for you of different cartoons where it's all shuffled together, and you get like a Popeye cartoon after a Bugs Bunny, and then you hit play, and it just goes, and you're done.
Right. Very quickly, I just want to point out in the comments, David, I do see all your questions. There's a couple of things there I do want to talk about. I will get to it shortly. He was saying he interviewed Moment Chance a few years ago. So
cool.
That would have been amazing. Yeah, I think with the streaming service, we're going to see a lot more. We're going to see a lot more Muppet content. I know Muppets Now is coming out. I've heard conflicting dates. I heard that it was potentially this month, and then I heard it wasn't until August, and then I heard it wasn't until June, and then I heard it wasn't. So I have no idea anymore. Kirk Thatcher was in a live stream on Instagram the other day. He directed half of it. He's really excited for it. He said he thinks it's coming out in the next couple of months, but he wasn't 100% sure. Speaking of the streaming service, just let me jump to one of David's questions. He said, how do you feel about the Muppet series for Disney Plus getting cancelled? That's the Josh Gad series. The Josh Gad series, you listen to the pitch for that show. The pitch for that show was, it's set in the 80s, and it's set after the Muppets take Manhattan, and Rolf disappears, and the Muppets go looking for them, and are looking for him. And we all made that face that you're currently making.
That's so random. Everything about that is it's like they took a bunch of Muppet Wiki articles and put them in a blender, and that's what came out. Yeah.
So apparently, as much as we all went, huh? Apparently, quite a lot of people involved in the Muppets, both creative, performing, or whatever, all went, huh?
Gotta love them.
And
gotta love those guys.
And so the guy who took over as the head of Muppet Studio apparently went to Josh Gad and said, hey, we don't love this idea, but have you got any other ideas you might want to do, or something else we can develop? Or, if we come up with an idea, would you be interested in developing it? And Josh Gad said, no, this is the idea I want to do. And Disney went, well, someone said this pitch for the Josh Gad show sounds like bad fan fiction. Yeah, right? And so I think the fact that it didn't go ahead is probably a good sign. Like, I wrote this in an article last year, an article that was one of the most divisive things I've ever written, that was called Disney Doesn't Hate the Muppets. My God, did people react to that, right? Yeah. A lot of people weren't happy with me. I think the fact that they weren't willing to develop a show that didn't make sense and was going to be looked at by people making it going, wait, what? Like, why are we doing this? Like, this makes no sense. I think shows faith in the Muppet brand. I think it shows that they want to do stuff that is going to be received well. And so I think the people who are in charge now, that's not to say the people who were in charge before weren't great. Like, you know, I know Debbie McClellan, who was the vice president, her and I were quite friendly. We used to email each other back and forth. She had their best interest at heart. She really did. But there was only so much she could do. I think the people who are in charge now are sort of willing to maybe push it a little bit further and sort of see what they can do. And so I do wonder if they're a little bit more interested in getting the Muppet Show on Disney+, if they're not more interested in doing more things on Disney+, more new content. I know that they've done, like, they've been doing their social media videos. I know they've got a ton more in the bank ready to go. So yeah, I think streaming is probably the best thing to happen to the Muppets in a long time. I just hope the Muppets Now is received well so that they do more, so that there is the drive. Okay, well, enough people watching this. All right, let's talk about the Muppet Show and putting that onto Disney+. Let's talk about doing new things on Disney+. Let's talk about new things on YouTube. Let's talk about another live show. Whatever it is, I think, yeah, I think Disney+ is a good thing. And I'm saying that while I'm wearing a Bugs Bunny jumper, so you know I don't work for Disney.
Yeah, I also think Disney Plus is cool. I had another idea, though, pertaining to Disney Plus that actually sort of eventually does relate to Muppet stuff and relates to what you were talking about before in another stream.
Yeah.
I would love it if Disney came up with a good way to take all of their park-related content and just put it in some little pocket of Disney Plus, like an add-on just for park stuff, where you can see, you know, the ride-throughs, where you can see like the 3D films, anything that's like parks only, something like Captain EO that you wouldn't normally want to have streaming just with everything else, or all those specials. They've done so many specials at the parks, like a parade every year.
Yeah.
All of this weird parks content that's largely been forgotten, that's just focused on random Disneyland and Disney World stuff, and is often just to promote specific things happening on specific dates at specific Disney parks. Some of us are total parks nerds. There it is. Total parks nerds. It's flipped. This monitor is flipped. It's like they're expecting me to puppeteer or something. That's so weird. Mike, I think that this service, this StreamYard, must have been made by Muppet people. So that's what Steve Whitmire's doing now. Now we know. But where was I? That totally threw my train of thought. But yeah, I think that making something where you could put a good archive of Disney Parks history that's not just the crappy copies on YouTube, but is the official copies. Yeah. Have that somewhere, not in the mix with all the Disney movies, because that would be odd, but it's its own little pocket somehow, like an add-on for Disney Plus, a plug-in of sorts. It would be really good, and it would also allow us then to have some copy of Muppet Vision 3D as it is now, so that in the event they want to, you know, change it up a bit and add new things or switch out the show or what have you, which I have mixed feelings about, at the very least we would have some official record of what it was. That would make me feel a little bit better about it.
Right. I think Muppet Vision, to release that on something like Disney Plus is difficult, because as much as, yes, you got the show, it is all about sort of that wacky, whoa, 3D sort of thing. You've also got the Statler and Waldorf in the balcony, who are, you know, animatronics. You've got Bean Bunny turning up. You've got Sweetums walking through the studio. You've got the Swedish Chef behind everybody. So I think they would, if they were going to release it, they would need to figure out the best way of doing so, because I just don't know that it would work sort of any other way. That said, there is a video on YouTube that someone's obviously gone to multiple different sessions and has filmed everything.
Yeah.
And it cuts together really well. So if they did something like that, that would probably be their best bet. I know I discussed it, I think, with Joe, but I don't understand why Muppets Go to Walt Disney World can't be on there, because they own everything in that. That said, there was a lot of argument over Christmas why people were wondering why Muppet Family Christmas wasn't on Disney Plus. People,
why did I think? Duh.
Yeah, people sort of forget that the Muppets aren't all owned by one. Like all those characters aren't all owned by one cohesive unit now. They are 3 different units. So yes, okay, they can do live shows and stuff, and quite often get the characters together because that's a one-off. If you're going to be streaming something, Sesame needs to make some sort of revenue off that. Henson need to make some sort of revenue off that. So yeah, I think I can understand why something like Muppet Family Christmas is on there, but there are certainly more specials, more things like that. I think with ride-throughs, like I watch a lot of ride-throughs on YouTube anyway, because I'm, at least a 15-hour flight from Disneyland. So
what's your nearest theme park? Any theme park. What's closest to you?
As in a Disney park or any park? Any
theme park that is closest to you physically.
We have a sort of carnival type one in about a 45-minute drive from me that is expensive and not that great.
What's it called?
It's called Luna Park. It has, I believe, the oldest wooden roller coaster in the world.
I looked that up one time, yeah.
Well, there you go. So that's not far from my place. We also have another one that's reasonably new. We have a couple of like little ones, but like they're not great. They're sort of like family fun parks, not really a theme park. I'm in Victoria in Queensland, so a good 2.5-hour flight from me. We have Movie World, which is Warner Brothers. So you've got Bugs Bunny walking around.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of your DC characters. We've also got a water park there, a SeaWorld, and we have another place called Dreamworld that we don't talk about because Dreamworld had a big incident a couple of years ago, and now no one goes there.
Okay. So, anyway.
Horrific.
Okay, cool. So, what were we talking about? Theme parks and streaming services, and also the fact that all of the Muppet companies aren't together anymore, and that's weird. So,
if I can interject, because they are interested in doing stuff with these characters. And actually, David again brought up something that I haven't actually seen anybody bring up yet. There's a National Geographic show called Brain Games that Keegan-Michael Key hosts. Have you heard about this?
I'm aware of the show, yeah.
Are you aware that there are Muppets on it?
No.
Bunsen and Beaker do about a 30-second, 45-second bit every episode where they explain the science behind something that's going on in the show. I haven't watched enough of the show to see all of them yet. I've seen a couple of episodes. I'm waiting for the show to end, like the season to end, so that I can cut together a compilation of them all and release them. But yeah, the Muppets are technically on television at the moment. They're just not on. It was never promoted they were going to be on it. But, you've got Dave Goelz playing Bunsen. You've got Dave Rudman playing Beaker. They're both there doing just little comedic bits for 45 seconds, and it's great. It's nice.
And I mean, the Muppets have been on TV. I mean, just look at the Doozers. We all love the Doozers. We all watch it every day.
Doozers is I have a big Doozer tattoo down here.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my jumper's on, so I can't show you.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So, well, I had other stuff I wanted to talk about. Now I can't remember. What's a good approach to handling the Muppets? Because I know that
usually,
the Muppets
with your arm up. Nah.
Very funny. So with the Muppets, are they the kind of property, this relates to some of the stuff you were talking about with Clayton, are they the kind of property that needs to have one central figurehead like Jim Henson, who's sort of guiding the whole thing and is, you know, just the one creative voice who has the vision for what the Muppet brand is supposed to be and pulls it forward? Or do you want to look at the way that they're starting to handle the Looney Tunes now? We'll see this shortly when they start releasing all these shorts they've supposedly made, where they kind of let a whole bunch of different artists put different spins on it. And the reason why I bring up the last one, even though the latter one sounds, I know, it makes me make that face too, is that in theory, if you want the Muppet brand to be stronger, you could try to rearrange the Muppet brand so it isn't just one thing. Because remember, back in the day, the Muppet brand meant Kermit and the Muppet Show gang and their movies, the Sesame Street gang, the Fraggle Rock characters, presumably other things that some people care about. Some people love other things that they're going to bring up in the comments, and they're going to be upset that I didn't mention. Sorry to all the Land of Gorge lovers out there. But it was a complicated brand. It had different parts that were aimed at different people and that served different functions. And now the Muppets are one thing, despite the fact that Disney also owns the Bear and the Big Blue House Muppets. I might come back to that later. But I think that it would be interesting to see what would happen if they tried to reconfigure the Muppets so that someone who had one idea for what the Muppets could be would take some set of Muppet characters in the Disney library, some small number of them, maybe add some new Muppet characters they'd create, and make one show that's not a Kermit and Miss Piggy thing, but it's a Muppet property with still lots of great puppetry, and it would allow for the Muppets to be something new, so the Muppets just aren't the same thing over and over again. And that way you could have different artists and different creators, different visionaries working with these characters, but also strengthening the brand by diversifying it. And then you do the specials and movies where all these different characters then come together and meet up and have, you know, the Muppets Endgame, basically, in which they all die and come back to life. And it's really cool. The Muppets beat Thanos. Yeah.
I think I'm going to go back to when I was nodding my head vigorously. I think the Muppets need someone as a figurehead. I think they need someone running the ship. And I think that the issue... Are you eating Muncho?
Jarrod, let me tell you something about Munchos. I don't know if you realize this. It's kind of a secret. But this isn't a potato chip. I know it might look like it's a potato chip, but this isn't a potato chip. You know what this is? You're not going to believe it. You're not going to be able to guess it. It's a potato crisp. It's a potato crisp.
Thanks, Munchos.
It's always crunchy, never soggy, or whatever the slogan is.
I think we made our money. No, so I think the Muppets need a cohesive one person running the ship. This is the Muppets in general, not with Sesame, not with Fraggle, not with everything like that. I'm talking about sort of one person running the ship.
Or just the Disney Muppets, or all
just
of them.
The Disney Muppets.
Just the Disney Muppets. Okay.
They need one person running the ship. Preferably, I think, a performer. Because I think that's why Jim did so well. Because Jim knew a lot of the different sides of it. So I think they would do best in putting someone like, whether it be Bill Beretta, or probably not Dave Goelz, because I don't think he'd do it now. Someone like Matt Vogel, whoever it is.
Steve Whitmire would be so great, because literally everyone loves him. Literally everybody likes him. Go on.
Says someone in the comments doesn't enjoy when we make fun of Steve Whitmire. But that's okay.
I said everyone likes him. What do you want from me? Go on.
Let's not make this a Whitmire bash. Okay, whoever it is, they need to put someone in charge. And I think at the moment they're having a difficult problem trying to find that one person. And I understand that things are complicated. I understand that there's a lot more business that goes along with it. Creative-wise, at least, they need one person who knows these companies, knows these brands, knows this franchise, knows the property, who can really grab it, yank it, and be like, right, this is mine. This is what we're going to do something with it. We're going to do something with it. This is what we're going to do, and just drive it home. And I think at the moment, there's almost too many cooks. When you think of, like, there's two people currently running Muppet Studio. Apparently, they're lovely people. I can't remember his name. Her name is Lee Slaughter. She's from Australia, so big thumbs up from me. Apparently, they're lovely people. Apparently, they're quite sort of keen to do things. But I think they've also got people above them who are sort of putting a bit of pressure on them. Okay, we're only making this if you can guarantee it's going to make us a lot of money.
I mean, yeah, that's
I'm not never going to make you a lot of money. I know that sounds terrible, but they're just not. They're not going to make you Marvel money. They're not going to make you Star Wars money. It's just not going to happen. It's really not. They're going to make you some cash. Like both them. One moment, please put your hand down, and I will get to you shortly. I think, like the Muppets and Muppets Most Wanted made a little bit of cash. I do wonder if part of the issue was the 2015 series, at least the first half of the 2015 series. I think that really maybe made people go, ooh, this is what they're doing with the Muppets? Okay. Bang, I'm out. And because it was so much different than, say, Muppets Most Wanted, which had come out 12 months earlier.
And wasn't a big hit.
It wasn't a big hit, which you can hear me and Clayton discuss if you go back and watch our video. I think, yeah, I just think they need one person to really steer the ship. And look, I'm going to put forward you, Matt Vogels, for that sort of position, because Matt has the drive to, he wants to know what the fans want to see. He really does. I mean, you just have to look at something like Below the Frame. He's doing that for the fans. When they did the live stream last year on Facebook, where they did basically a puppetry class, that was all Matt pushing that. I just think someone like him would probably, he'd turn around and go, right, if I've got the keys to the car, I reckon we can make something great.
And I mean, yes, he'd be the right person for that. He'd be great for that. There are other people who would also be good at it, but he's a very good pick. I'd vote for him. So that being said, there's just the reality of it that you pointed out is that it's not the Muppet Company. It's not the Jim Henson Company. It's the Muppet Studio LLC, part of the Walt Disney Corporation. Yeah. And ultimately it comes down to what I mean, this happens with a lot of properties, some of which are Muppet properties that matter very much to us. There are people running things in administration who don't necessarily let the creative people who know how to make fun things have all the fun and make the fun. However, you got to keep in mind that right now, as a property, Disney is treating the Muppets in the smartest way possible. Right now, they're already doing it as a property because of Muppet Babies. Remember, Hollywood right now is first and foremost a toy store. You can only make so much money with selling Blu-rays. You can only make so much money with selling DVDs. You can only make so much money even with streaming, where you're only paying a few dollars a month and getting to watch whatever the heck you want, as much as you want, as long as it's on that service. You can only make so much that way. You really can. And you can make a lot more with merch. The way that a company like Disney makes a lot of its money is in the merch sales. Why in the world were there 3 Cars movies when no one was enthusiastic enough about the Cars franchise? And then, right in the middle of people hating on Cars 2 and dreading a Cars 3, they make a Cars Land in Disney in California. Why? Because their Cars toys sell. The toys sell, and it lets them corner the market, the very lucrative market on toy cars, because toy cars always sell, and it's better when you have a property attached to that. And so now when you go into any toy store, what you see is it's all characters. It's all IP. Every toy, you're not going to find any little wooden trains anymore, no Lincoln Logs. It's properties, it's characters. You've got Paw Patrol and whatever the other networks rip off of Paw Patrol is, just vying to get all of the kids to buy their toys and their pajamas. And so they did Muppet Babies on Playhouse Disney. Good show. You and I have both seen it. I think we both said good things about it. It's good stuff with very talented people working on it. I like the look of the show. I think that the characters look really cool, and the way that they designed them to be kind of felty while still looking distinctly animated is cool. I dig it. It's primarily made to make toys, if we're being honest. And there are lots of good things that are primarily made to make toys. I would argue a lot of Star Wars stuff is primarily made to sell toys. You can go back to lots of great 80s cartoons, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You know, people still really love that stuff. It's good.
Right. So I mean,
these themselves were originally created to sell merch.
yeah.
Back in the 80s.
I mean, you look at something like Star Wars, and you see those toys everywhere. Of course, there's a reason for that, because they're selling. These things are selling. When you look at Muppet Babies, like, I occasionally will walk into a toy store here, and I'll very quickly have a little look around, see what Sesame stuff they've got. There's not a ton of Sesame Street stuff here in Australia. We have some of it, not as much. There are stuff in America that is much more popular than it is here. I think with Muppet Babies, though, like, I've very, very rarely seen Muppet stuff. It's only ever been when a movie's come out that there's been Muppet stuff hanging around here.
Yeah.
The last 2 years, without fail, there is a Kermit or a Miss Piggy baby Kermit, baby Kermit, baby Piggy, and I'll like see a kid walking around carrying one as well. So I think you're right. I think
my argument is that they have not figured out what to do with the Muppets as a brand, but they figured out what to do with the Muppets as a property.
Yep.
And there's a big difference there. And that factors into the whole who's the creative guy steering the ship question. Because the creative guy steering the ship might be just thinking of the Muppets as characters and as really as a group of entertainers who are supposed to be making funny things that historically have been for adults, but also kid-friendly. And Muppet Babies doesn't necessarily fit in with the direction we want for the brand. I still love it. I'm still glad it's on TV. I hope it keeps going. But that's kind of where you have that little bit of tension there. That's kind of hard to resolve, and that I don't think is going to go away unless somehow this pandemic manages to just totally overthrow capitalism and there's no copyright anymore. And that would be kind of crazy. I wouldn't mind it. I'm just saying it would be kind of crazy.
Well, I saw a very interesting video recently talking about the whole Disney copyright thing and how Disney kept copyright. If Disney were to let the copyright of, say, Mickey Mouse go, people can't just start making their own Mickey Mouse stuff. That's not how it works, because there are still trademarks.
Right.
I think people get, and I certainly did, I didn't know this until recently. I didn't understand between a copyright and a trademark. And that's as someone who has a film degree and studied film law at one point. So, yeah, I think there are... I don't quite know where I'm going with that sentence.
It's interesting. Defunctland has a whole Twitter, what do you call it? A bunch of tweets that go through it, that work through just every step of how you will not actually be able to do anything with Mickey Mouse if they let this go. But they've still, the entire copyright system needs to be completely reworked, but that's a separate topic. Speaking of toys.
Sorry, just very quickly. Someone asked, is Rastamouse still a big thing? I had never heard of Rastamouse. I've just looked it up. That looks problematic. It's just a Jamaican mouse, but it was made in England, so I'm really concerned about accents. And I'm going to have to... I've never heard of it before until this. If you're wondering, they're no longer making it. They finished in 2015. But yeah, it's just a mouse, but it's got a Jamaican hat on, and apparently, there are concerns about the racist overtones.
You know, every generation has its Jar Jar. I'm just glad that this one I don't have to deal with, and I didn't have to know it existed.
No, there you go. Well, now I'm going to have to watch all of it.
Okay. So speaking of how Hollywood is a toy store, Sesame Street.
Yes.
I just want to talk about it briefly, and when I say I want to talk about it briefly, I mean I might go on about it for a very long time. So Sesame...
Well, let's not go on about it for a real long time.
I'm looking at the time. We don't have a lot of time, do we?
No, and we also want to get to some questions and stuff. I do definitely want to at least begin to discuss Sesame with you.
Briefly. If you want, of course, we can also have another chat in which we continue this further if you have time. But from the looks of it, you do not have time, because I know you have so much other stuff in the works right now. So much other great content. Sorry, I'll be fast. Quiet down. Social distance. 6 feet. 6 feet. Jarrod, back up. 6 feet. Keep backing up. Keep backing up.
No, as far as I can go, I have a bed now.
Okay, so Sesame Street. So Sesame Street is pretty much the most important show on television right now.
Correct.
It's the most important show on television right now.
And the best.
And it's pretty good. I've heard good things. Sometimes it wins Emmys. Those are cool. They're like golden and shiny. That's nice. But it's pretty much the most important show on television right now. And here's why I say that. Because we've already established that Hollywood is a toy store. The entire entertainment industry is a toy store. All of it is. Certainly with television. Certainly with children's television. It's all made to sell toys. Plenty of people who know it more intimately than I do can tell you that that is where children's television is right now.
Yeah.
So then you got Sesame Street. And you talked about this with Clayton, and it intrigued me a lot, what you do about Sesame Street and what Sesame Street benefits from and how it can improve. But it's already doing a really important thing in that I believe it forces the rest of the children's television industry to behave a little bit. It keeps the rest in check to some extent. What I mean by that is, for right now, Sesame Street sets the standard. It sets this very high bar for what children's television has to be in order to be acceptable. It's educational children's television. It actually serves a function that they have studied now with tests that prove Sesame Street teaches kids.
Yeah.
And for so many years, really for as long as I have been alive, somehow this show has been in crisis, and at any moment it seems could cease to exist. It has been fighting for its life. The most beloved children's show in history has been fighting for its life just to exist for as long as I've been alive, and that's extremely weird. And that's because the rest of children's TV wants it gone. You can go back to the whole Henson-Eisner-Katzenberg dispute around 1990, when there was this actual attempt, it seems, allegedly, by the Disney company to just end Sesame Street merchandise so that they could stop all of the money that Sesame Workshop had coming in, so that that show would just go away, and there wouldn't be that competition in children's TV, on the airwaves, and also in the toy store. The other companies, I think, want Sesame Street gone and have wanted Sesame Street gone for decades. They've tried to be peaceful about this, but the world we're living in is one in which Sesame TV has to be educational, so long as there is Sesame Street, I think. Once that standard goes away, once that's gone, then the networks will, first of all, just work even harder than they've been working for decades to get rid of public television and just make that go away.
Yeah.
But secondly, they'll have free reign and they can do whatever they want. Once there is no public alternative, and it would cost too much money to make a public alternative, and the one public children's TV show, or the one children's TV show, I should say, on PBS that should be untouchable, Sesame Street, once that goes away, then the other networks can finally stop pretending that they exist for the benefit of children. Stop pretending that Dora is actually here to teach her kids Spanish. She's here to sell things. And that terrifies me. And that makes it vitally important that Sesame Street stays around. But in order for that to happen, Sesame Street has to sell more toys. It's this weird thing where it kind of has to become a little bit more like the enemy, and it's been doing this, again, since when I was born. It's still a very good show. It's still, again, the best children's TV show there is. I mean, it's got Muppet Babies rivaling it now. But that's like choosing between children. I can't do that. But yeah, what could we do to save Sesame Street? I don't know, because I know that I personally want to go ahead and just buy the merch, because I know that's what's so good for Sesame is I just want to buy their stuff. But they literally don't have anything for me. Yeah. Like, I just get a weird little Abby Cadabby doll, and then I have no place to put that because I have other Muppet stuff here that's frankly a little bit cooler.
Yeah. And looking around at the moment, at least with new Muppet Sesame merch, I can see 1, 2, 3 things, and that's it. I've got a couple of old school, like early 70s stuff.
Yeah, I've got some of that.
But that's it.
I've got like an orange Oscar Pop figure over there.
I have that, but it's not on display. It's sort of at the moment. I think at least I can only talk about what I sort of do, and I'm talking about the website. You can see down here, the Muppet Mindset. Look at that.
Ah, wow.
have to lift our hand.
That's pretty cool.
I think with what I do is obviously I'm going to talk up Sesame Street when I think they're doing well. I'm going to constructively criticize when I think maybe they haven't done something as well and how they can maybe do it better in the future, whatever it is. But when it comes to like my interviews with the characters, I use that as an opportunity to have these characters not be themselves, if that makes sense. I'm letting them off the chain a little bit.
Yeah.
To the point where, you know, I've said this before, but when I did my interview with Cookie Monster and Abby a couple of years ago, I said to David Rudman, you feel free to just derail this interview. And he was like, you asked for it.
Yeah.
So if you watch my interview, that last 45, 30 seconds is just me laughing as David just dialed, like we had a couple of little things planned, but he just dials it to 11 and goes insane. And so I'm sort of trying to let these characters be something slightly different and show maybe a slightly different side than they're allowed to on TV and get people maybe a little more interested that way. So that's what I personally do. Where it comes to like merchandise, I think they maybe need to do a better job of the nostalgia side of things. They need to do more for the adults who are watching Sesame Street with their kids and used to watch it when in the 80s or the 70s or the 90s or anything like that. Yes.
Yes. JD Hansel, MuppetHub.com. Question for you, sir. Honestly, at this point, neither have I. Haven't seen it in a long time. Question, though. I lost it again. This is why I don't do live streams. I like to edit stuff in a podcast. But they tried stuff, I think, around the 50th anniversary. They were like, hey, what about, like, you know, they tried that Cookie Monster photo puppet. That was, like, really classy, top-notch stuff. But I don't know who could afford it. Right. And I know that they were looking at some of the data that, like, you had collected, and I think Tough Pigs had collected some too. And yet, I'm still at the point where, you know what I'm drinking from right now? I'm drinking out of a glass when what I should be holding is a plastic cup with teeny little super guy on it.
Mm-hmm.
That is such a cheap plastic cup to make.
Mm-hmm.
So affordable. You could make them disposable.
Yeah.
And how much would it cost to just stick the PNG? You surely already have a teeny little super guy on a plastic cup. Would I buy it? Yes. I guess I would.
Yeah, I think I'm hoping. So they're definitely making the Sesame Lego set.
Oh yes,
that is coming. I don't know when.
I also can't afford that either because it's Lego.
Yeah, I'm either gonna spend a lot of money or I'm gonna be real nice to Lego and hope they send me a free one. I have to have some perks doing this site. I think yeah, I'm hoping that sells well so that they go, oh, okay, adults are maybe a little more, because I think more adults and kids are going to buy that set. Or going to want that set.
Right.
I think, I'm hoping that sells well enough that, and I know Sesame are definitely interested in doing more things for older people. I know that when the Cookie Monster photo puppet went, there was some real concern from some of us that Sesame were going to go, oh, maybe people don't want this merchandise. Maybe adults aren't interested in this stuff. And then I've since heard from various sources that that's not the case, that Sesame are aware that maybe that might have been an issue coming from Hasbro's side of things. And so I think, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that that we're gonna get some more stuff. I don't know quite what I mean. For example, right? And I'm gonna have to stand up and no, I thought you were gonna see that I'm wearing sweatpants. Right? You look at this.
Ooh,
what kid? So that's one of the Mighty Ape, I think. Is it? Figurines. That's a Bert one. These are expensive.
You've got a skeletal Bert.
Yes, you've got a skeletal Bert.
Buddha Gonzo. You collect the weirdest versions of the characters.
I do. Well, that's not official. That's just something someone made. That's official.
Which is crazy. I love it.
Mighty Jax, I think it's called. Sorry. There are a bunch of different characters. You can get Big Bird, Ernie, Bert, Elmo. I think even an Oscar, Cookie Monster. So they're obviously making stuff for adults because I can't imagine any 4-year-old's going to go, Mommy, can I have the creepy skeleton bird, please?
If they do, I'm very concerned. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, in which case that kid needs help. So I think they are still going to make some stuff. I just hope it's not going to be crazy expensive. If I may interject, we're going to sort of wrap this thing up very shortly. However, I did promise bad impressions and good impressions.
If we can. I mean, yeah, I will. First of all, I will say I have a lot more Sesame Street stuff to talk about at some point. Maybe not here. I might find another outlet for it, or I might try to talk with you again after you're done talking with a bunch more important people than myself. We'll see what we can arrange, or I'll see what I can do on my own. But yeah, when I brought up the whole alternate reality, what would we want Sesame Street to be? I have some ideas about that, some ideas about what I would like to see the Muppets do and what I'd like to see the Jim Henson Company do. And I'd like to get to talk about that at some point. So rain check, everybody put a pin in that and remember it for the next time that JD Hansel decides to do a Muppet thing again. So if you're watching this, please feel free to ask questions, but you don't have to ask questions to JD and myself. You can ask questions to characters. You can ask a question to Jim Henson. You can ask a question to whoever you want, and then we're going to argue about who's going to do the impression, and then we're going to do the impression. While we are waiting for you to ask us questions, I'm going to announce 2 things. Are you ready, Mr. JD Hansel? Number one, tomorrow, I haven't decided what time yet. I have to make sure I don't clash with Tough Pigs next live stream. I'm going to do another one of my story times. Ooh, cool.
Live on Instagram, and I'm going to be reading the monster at the end of this book. And
wow, I wonder how it ends.
Wonder how it ends, and I'm going to do my Grover impression the entire time. I do a decent Grover.
Do I not? Very good Grover, yeah. You remember the time you were on the podcast with it was me and it was Clayton, and one of us started doing Grover, and you immediately were like, "No, Grover's mine." I don't know which one of you did it.
Yeah,
and it was me. But Clayton's Grover is also good. All 3 of us can do Grover, but I think I like yours the best.
The second thing I'm going to announce. Oh, are you excited? This on Friday night at 8:30 Eastern Time, only on YouTube, I am doing a live stream interview with Peter Linz.
Wow, who's that?
He's just some guy who stood next to Ernie once.
What does he do? What are Peter Linz's characters?
Peter Linz does Ernie, he does Harry, he does Walter, he does Lips, he does Statler, he does and then a lot of like little incidental characters. He did
Tutter. Peter Linz did Tutter.
Tutter. I didn't
never leave out Tutter.
Big House. He did Tutter, and then did he do Pip or Pop? He did one of those 2.
Holy provolone! I can't believe it. Leave it at the best Muppet. What are you doing?
Sorry. So yes, I'm going to be chatting to Peter. It's going to be live. You can all come in. You can all ask questions. We're very excited. He and I have been discussing it a little bit. I'm also going to ask a lot of questions, obviously, about Sesame and about Muppets and Walter and Ernie and Harry and all that sort of stuff. But then we're going to ask some questions that are things you maybe don't just know. Some more basic questions. Because as Mr. JD said in a chat with me, he's heard a lot of that stuff. He wants to hear about things that maybe you don't generally hear about when it comes to these Muppet performers. So I'm going to ask them sort of basic questions as well. So there you go. That's a little bit of that's a scoop for you all because I haven't announced that yet. That's not really probably getting announced for another 10 hours or so, but that's just for you guys.
Thank you, Jarrod. It's just
no one has asked us any questions so far, but that's okay. It's fine. How about I ask you a question?
Okay, cool.
Okay. Big Bird, can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street?
Oh boy. Well, can I tell you how to get to Sesame Street? I can't tell you where I am right now. That's all I got. There's very little that I can do with my Big Bird. It's not.
Hi, Bird.
Yes, I am. That's the one thing I'm good for. I don't believe I do a good Big Bird impression. I believe I do a funny Big Bird impression.
You do a funny Big Bird. If you go back and listen to all the Muppet Fan Talking podcasts, Hi Big Bird rocks up a lot. We also have Drunk Elmo.
And Drunk Elmo is my favorite. And you had planned a great twist for Drunk Elmo where he was going to eventually stop being drunk.
Right. So we never got around to doing it for various reasons, but I had written basically Elmo's intervention, where we're going to do characters, and it was like Elmo was basically going to cause mayhem on Sesame Street. People were going to get into arguments with each other. Turns out Bert's brother's in prison. They're selling Bert drugs. It was the whole thing. It was a lot of fun, and unfortunately, you'll never get to see it. But it was going to end with Elmo going to rehab and becoming like hardcore religious, like what is it? Almost like dangerously religious.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, never came. But if I can ask you, Mr. Jim Henson, what's your favorite thing to eat?
What I like to eat is something that I don't normally spend too much time thinking about. I think it's something that really it shouldn't be overanalyzed, and we should spend most of our time really just watching film and television. That's a lot more interesting than anything that you broke.
It's bang on.
I got to get back in. I have to have the hand here. I got like, I sort of have to frown a little. I sort of like to have a, I like to have a hamburger, but I can only have that when Frank's not around, because he really cares about character purity, and he actually takes it so seriously that he will not let us eat any of the animals that are the characters he performs.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure I understand that, but he's still a very good guy to work with. Yeah. I love doing Jim Henson, and I hardly ever get the chance to. So thank you for giving me that opportunity. It is my favorite impression to do. I've never perfected it, but I like it.
It is very close. Like, you do a couple of real good impressions, like your Brain from Pinky and the Brain. I mean, you have to get some of it once you finish your water.
I have to have water to do it. It's a difficult voice to do because it's low. The lower voices are difficult. Yeah. Except for Frank voices. If you're doing like a low Frank voice, like you want to do pass the butter, which is, I like to imagine that Frank Oz wakes up every morning from a horrible nightmare that just ends with pass the butter, and that's when he just wakes up sweating.
Yeah.
Every morning. But yeah, no, the brain is down in this place. It's very deep, and it's supposed to be played by someone who is much older and who has been on the planet for certainly at least 30 years, whereas I, at a mere 23 and a half, cannot quite give it the depth that it requires, but I get as close as I can, and someday, with this voice and this dialect, I will take over the world. But first I have to stop touching my face, because I keep doing that, and that's going to get me killed when the world ends. From my finest creation, the coronavirus. Yes, it was the brain who started the virus, just so you know.
Narf.
What?
I said Narf.
Oh, yeah.
That was great. Would you like to ask me any questions, or any of my questions?
Yeah. I'm trying to think about what's the best character of yours to ask a question. Oh, boy.
I mean...
Grover.
Yes.
What is your deepest, darkest, greatest fear?
Oh, far out. Now I'm being put on the spot now.
Uh-huh. You asked me to ask you a question.
Hello there, Mr. Jakey. I am feared of unemployment. That's why I have all of the jobs. Every single job, I am like, I will go there and I will go there, and I will be a waiter, and then I will be a barista, and then I will do all of the jobs except for unemployment. Ha 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 ha.
How has COVID-19 and this lockdown affected your employment? What percentage of jobs are you still able to hold now?
Oh, I am still essential in 45 of my 3,467 jobs.
Grover doesn't sleep. I don't believe Grover sleeps.
No, I am on a lot of medication.
And like, how old is he supposed to be? Because you mentioned with Clayton how the Muppets on Sesame Street are like the children who ask the things that a child might ask, and then you've got the grown-ups. But the Muppets are in this weird spot where, you look at Grover, and he is on the one hand sort of the most childlike Muppet, but also he holds all these jobs for one thing. So he acts as though he's in a.
I think if you start getting into that, you go down a rabbit hole and your brain's going to explode. Like, but how old are they meant to be? Because like sometimes you see them in like books, they're at preschool, but then they live together, and then I don't know.
It's a weird thing. I mean, there is no Muppet canon. Each and every minute of Sesame Street is in its own separate canon from the rest of the series.
Yeah,
which is why. Gosh, I like your Fozzie Bear. And I'm trying to think of a good thing to ask you.
Right. We might make my Fozzie the last one because we have done this for an hour and 10 minutes. While you think of the question for Fozzie, I'm just going to answer one very quick question.
Yeah.
Macy said, you talk about how they should make more Sesame Street merch for adults, but is there really a big market for that outside the die-hard fans? I think there's still stigma around liking Sesame Street as an adult. I think you make some good points there, but I think people nowadays are getting to a point where they're a little more comfortable in their fandom, where they're a little more comfortable in their in what they enjoy and expressing what they enjoy. Just going to things like Comic-Con, you see grown adults who hold down jobs and have mortgages and kids who are walking around in, General Grievous costumes from Star Wars or whatever it is. So I'm not saying there's a giant market outside us diehard fans, but there is certainly some sort of enjoyment. Even if people are buying it ironically, they're still buying it. As far as I'm concerned, go for it. Anyway.
No, but that's interesting. It's a very good question because it's something I think about a lot. Is what would it actually take? Under what circumstances would I obtain a new piece of Muppet merch? Since I hardly ever buy anything at this point, I already have most of the Muppet merchandise that exists, as far as I'm concerned. Why buy more? It's not a good use of my money. But so much of it is gifts. So much of it is what's given to me, and so much of it is just a matter of what's easy to get. And I believe that there is a market for stuff that's traditionally seen as child-oriented that now teenagers, college kids, grown-ups will buy. You go into any, a couple of years ago, you'd go into a Hot Topic and they'd have Goofy movie merch. Like, the Goofy movie, of all things, made a comeback in merch. It's odd, but it happens. And then, of course, lots of, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stuff still exists in some way, shape, or form. And it all goes through cycles of popularity, of course. But I do think that when you create the right space where, if it's the right kind of a location where it's a store in a lot of malls, where it's very easy for someone looking to get gifts for someone who they know likes the Muppets, can just find some good retro nostalgic Muppet stuff. If only as like a white elephant kind of thing, I can easily see people seeing, I don't know, just something that references a classic Sesame Street bit, like your King of Eight or your loaf of bread, stick of milk, any of the kind of things that they would have to reference in in one of their anniversary specials or one of their retrospective packages where they're like, here are the greatest hits of Sesame Street. Remember when we killed Mr. Hooper? That was the best. We love ourselves for killing off Mr. Hooper. They celebrated a lot. They're very happy that they did that. And I think that there would be so much great merch there. No, really, they actually could probably sell stuff with that portrait of Mr. Hooper, the big picture. They could find a way. Like a Mr. Hooper sign that's fairly cheap that you could stick in your kitchen or something. Anyway, yeah, find the place where it's convenient. Make it convenient online as well, so I'm not making a bazillion different accounts for a bunch of different websites where I have to pay shipping on those. Like if I've got Amazon Prime, I don't want to pay for shipping anymore. I just don't. Yeah. So again, just make it easy, and then there will be a market.
Anyway.
Yeah, Fozzie Bear, what do you think about that?
I think that it is
I don't like Amazon Prime.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't think of a joke.
That's
Oh,
sorry.
I'm so
I know that was on the spot. I couldn't think of a good question to ask Fozzie. Who are some interesting people who you've connected to through your Facebook portal, Fozzie?
I talked to Ma. She's in Florida. I talked to Kermit. I talked to Gonzo. I talked to Bill Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Bill and I are old friends. We met back in the 90s.
Of course.
Yeah. And
The best time to meet Bill Clinton.
yeah. He was playing saxophone.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, that man's sexy. Waka.
Yeah, very good, Fuzzy. Yeah, that was a good effort. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Oh
Hi
my
there.
goodness.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
You know, I just thought that you're doing a very nice little live stream here, Jarrod. It's a very fun thing. But it just need a little bit of help from a celebrity so that we could get the numbers up there. So here I am.
Well, thank you, Kermit. I appreciate it. Unfortunately, you had to come right at the end. Yeah, good
What's that
job.
about? That's it. I'm leaving.
I love you.
Freaking weirdo.
Just very quickly on that ABC sketch, and this is how I'm going to end it.
Yeah.
I still haven't figured out the details yet, but I have Joey's information. I have her email. I have conversed with Joey. Joey wants to do an interview, and I haven't managed to figure out the details yet. I need to send her another email. But I might even try and get that done during the apocalypse. So there you go. So I have an interview with Peter Lynn coming up in a couple of days. Live stream. You can be there. Even you, JD, can be in the comments asking questions.
Oh, I meant I could like be there, like in your room.
No.
If I get in a car right now, I can
You
probably
would isolate immediately into a hotel for 14 days. Unfortunately, that is what my government has decided.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that and
Actually, I don't know that there's a hotel thing. I think they're just like stay in your car. They like put a bunch of traffic cones around you, and you're just stuck wherever you are as soon as you cross the state line.
Yeah, 100%. So there we go. So I got that coming up. Hopefully, I'll have an interview with Joey soon. But that has been Big Dumb Questions with Muppet Mindset. I feel like a lot of the questions weren't as dumb as I thought they were going to be. I'm glad I didn't really come up with any because I feel like you would have been like, let's talk about Sesame Street and as a brand, as a property. And I would have been like, do you think the Doozer's name is Doozer because they Doozer things? And then that would have been it.
I thought of a bit recently that involved the name of the Doozers and Brian Henson. What was it? I never got to. I know we're trying to wrap it up, but real quickly, I thought of a bit based on the Happy Time Murders that I never have had a place for this bit. I'm still trying to figure out where I'm going to start creating content and in what format now because I've been changing my brand lately. But I thought of a thing about for the Happy Time Murders. That one was the movie was actually made relatively quickly. In that, I mean, I know it took 10 years, right? But it was in production about a year before it came out, and then I know in the fall before the August when it came out, whatever year that was, I'd heard through Jim Henson people that Brian Henson was off in England editing the Happy Time Murders, which is weird because I can understand going to another country to shoot something. I don't understand going to another country just to edit it. And I don't know why you would do that since you can kind of edit on a laptop or anything. So I like to imagine that Brian Henson didn't want to edit the Happy Time Murders without his father's involvement. So he got his laptop and literally spent every day editing on that bench where the Fraggle Rock writers got the idea for Doozers. And he's just like, where am I going to make this cut? I don't, what's the right place to do? I want to cut to the monster now? Or should I cut to the sex scene now? What am I get? Doozers! Thank you, Father. And then he brings it back to America, and they're like, what? This whole movie is just Doozers. This isn't the Happy Time Murders. It's just Doozers. That's what my father wanted.
Was that worth getting out?
Yes, it feels so good.
Great.
Sometimes I have bit constipation, where I've got a joke that's not good. It just needs to be out so that I don't have to think about it anymore.
Yep, fair
and
enough.
You give me so much relief. Thank you, Jim.
That's okay. This is
that was big dumb question.
this is what I'm going to end with. You mentioned that bench where they sat and came up with the word doozers. It's blurry because it hasn't loaded properly, but that is me sitting on that bench.
You did it! You invented doozers now.
I invented doozers now. There we go. Now it's a little better, but you can't
All
see it.
right.
So there you go. Thank you very much. Someone wants you to keep your podcast, Joe and JD. That was Anthony. Thanks, Anthony. I think you should do your podcast as well.
We'll see. Because I don't really
I will see you all very soon. Look, there's my Kermit tattoo. I will see you all very shortly. Goodbye. Thank you for the JD Hansel.
Bye.
Oh, yes. Do the munchos. We'll get our money.
Hey, you want a muncho? Yeah. Social distance.